Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Rezac, and I'm the Associate Rector at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm so glad to be with you today for our family faith formation. Today, I'd like to talk to you about stewardship. Now, we just started our fall pledge campaign, which is the season in the year when we ask our members to prayerfully consider if you are able to make a financial contribution to support the good work of St. Stephen's for the coming year. These pledges will help us put together a budget so that we can decide how we need to allocate our resources going forward so that we can be good stewards of what we have been given. So it's an important time for that reason. But stewardship itself is so much bigger than a pledge campaign or sacrificial giving or tithing or whatever else you may have heard. It's really about a way of life. Stewardship at its heart is the recognition that all that we are and all that we have is a gift from God. It's about having an attitude of gratitude for everything that we've received and for having a heart that wants to give something back out of thanksgiving for all of these good gifts. So it's not something that can be confined to a pledge season, and it's not even something that's about fundraising, although that is something that's very important as well. It's really about conversion. It's about that deeper life with God, and something that I think is really exciting for all of us to begin to live into. So with that in mind, I have some suggestions of how you can talk about this idea of stewardship with your children. The first is through prayer. So perhaps at the dinner table or breakfast table or before you go to bed, you could talk with your kids and ask them that question that we ask during the prayers of the people at our 9 a.m. service every Sunday, which is, what do you want to say thank you to God for? What do you want to say thank you to God for today? And if we really dig into that, there's so many things, aren't there, that we could say thank you for. And done on a regular basis, that's part of cultivating this position of gratitude, right? So rather than being oriented always to what we want and what we don't have, it's slowly orienting ourselves towards saying thank you for everything that we've received. I think that's a shift in our culture that could end up being a blessing for many of us. So starting with prayer is so important. So another idea that I have is thinking about the stewardship of the earth. So we're told in Genesis that God created the earth and named it as good, and that God made humans the stewards of the earth. God made us caretakers of the earth. And so one way that you can model that for your kids is if you're on a walk or at the beach or on a playground and you see some trash, pick it up and tell your kids that, we're doing this because we want to take care of the earth, because this is God's earth, right? We're just caretakers of it. We're just stewards of it. Now we should pick up that trash anyway, right? Because we don't want it to blow in the ocean and a sea turtle choke on it. But introducing that other messaging as well. It's about shifting the conversation away from just things we should do, which is important, to an attitude of reverence for the gift we've been given. And we can think about that with picking up trash on the road. We can think about that in the practices we do at home, like recycling or composting or choosing to eat meatless one meal, for example. Any of the practices that we do to take care of the earth, really making that link clear for our children. So that's another idea, is thinking about the stewardship of the earth. Third way is thinking about how we use the gifts and talents that we have been given for the glory of God and to help other people. So if you have musical talents or athletic talents or artistic talents or theatrical talents, there are gifts that God has given us that we can use to serve the church, serve the community. So thinking about that, even with smaller children. So acolyting is a great way to start that process, that we can serve in worship. And that's giving back of our time, right, to the glory of God. And then we can extend that. Are there things that we can do maybe in our community? Is our community going to have if we're athletically inclined, maybe there's going to be a 5K. I know there's going to be the Great Episcopal Race is going to be starting in November, where Episcopalians all over the country are going to get together and run a 5K, and the money's going to be used for the, I believe, the United Thank Offering. So, a wonderful way to use our athletic talents as part of joining together and getting back. One example. Or perhaps you really love reading with people. And even like younger children can do this, loving to read with people, or older people who like to do that. There's going to be some volunteer opportunities through our church that I'm really excited to tell you about coming up pretty soon. So that could be another way to give back a talent, a gift, something you enjoy doing to serve our community, to serve not just our church community, but our wider community. So something to think about there. And the fourth way is through our finances, through the financial gifts that we have. Now, I have a couple ideas of how you can do this. One is to include your kids in family conversations about budget. I know that talking about money can be stressful, depending on our current family situation or our families of origin. People have hang-ups about money, me included. It can be an anxious thing sometimes to talk about. So it's good when we feel kind of that anxiety or being unsure. It's good to remember that Jesus talked about money a lot. In several of his parables and other teachings, he either addressed money directly or he used money as an illustration. So that should free us to also start talking about money in the context of our faith. So one thing you could do with your kids is talk about your family budget. Is say, okay, this is the pot of money that we have for this month, and this much is going to go towards rent or mortgage, towards utilities. This is how much we're putting in savings. This is the entertainment budget, however you break it up, food, right? However much you break it up, and then saying, now we also need to make sure that we talk about ways that we're going to be giving, whether that's to the church or whether that's to other charitable organizations that you believe in that are doing good work in the world. And making the kids part of that conversation. I think it's important for them to see how adults are doing it, to have that model. I really do, for life skills going forward and for their faith going forward as well. And then another thing you can do building on that is if your kids are getting money in a birthday card or from the tooth fairy or from an allowance, you can take them through a similar process. So I'm not sure how much, let's use a tooth fairy. I'm not sure how much a tooth is going for these days. Let's just say $5. That might be outrageously too much, or maybe your kids get more. Let's just $5, 5 $1 bills, generous tooth fairy. So they get that from the tooth fairy, and you can lead them in a conversation and say, okay, well, how much are you going to save? How much are you going to spend right now? Maybe you want a candy bar or something. How much are you going to donate? And where would you like to donate that? Let's think about that together. Do you want to put it in the plate at the church? Do you want to give it somewhere else that you believe in? But how much are you going to give back of this gift that you've been given? I think that's a really important exercise to take kids through when they do receive a financial gift. And the other suggestion I'd have around money is that if you are coming to church in person and the basket is being passed around and you choose to put something in the basket, I know that a lot of people choose to give online in different ways, sometimes all lump sum or monthly, like people make different choices, right? But if you are giving something in the basket, maybe let your kids be the one to put it in. That gives them an experience of what it means to donate something, of actually giving it away physically, whether it's from their tooth fairy money or whether it's the family's contribution. I think that can be a great way to begin that conversation or continue that conversation about stewardship. So those are my suggestions, thinking about incorporating it into your prayer life through prayers of gratitude, Thinking about the stewardship of the earth and making clear that link about why we're doing what we're doing when we make these environmental choices. Thinking about the gifts and talents that we have and how we can use those to give back. And then thinking about family budgets and giving money back to the church or other charitable organizations that we believe in. So you see, it's not just about, a season of fundraising for St. Stephen's in particular, although that's part of it and necessary for the work that we do. It's also about that broader conversation and the conversion of life. Friends, be well, stay safe, wear your mask, probably even if you're vaccinated. And I'll see you soon.